let's go into a couple of things here. First, and other congratulations are due as being named the legislator of the year from the State Law Enforcement Officers Association. So congratulations on that one. What was that based on? And I know, but I just like to give you a chance to tell it.
Well, thank you. I'm the chairman of the Judiciary B Committee, so we deal with a lot of the criminal laws that come through. And of course, we want to be fair to everybody, but I think our friends in law enforcement have recognized that they should have a seat at the table when it comes to vetting new laws and how it applies to sentencing and release and early release and those types of things. So I like to think that we're fair in the state Senate to all sides, the victims, the perpetrators, but certainly want to include the law enforcement in that also. And I share that award with Angela Cockerham, the chairwoman from the House Judiciary Committee in the House as well. So it's quite an honor in an age and time where you talk about defunding police in many of our parts of the country, and you've talked about this extensively on your programs. It's a high honor, and I'm so thankful for the men and women in law enforcement who are willing to sacrifice their lives daily to make sure that we have a safe place to come to work and school and church and all of that.
We catch you cold on this one, but we were talking about it over the weekend. July the 1st, which is around the corner, all the new laws become official and they go into effect. One of them is the ability for stores to ship to the house or order and they'll deliver you alcohol. That will begin July 1st also, right?
It does.
That's beer. That's beer, wine, and whiskey. Anything that you want, right?
I think that's pretty much it. And, most parts of the state, you already had a lot of freedom to do that. But in many parts of our state, under the old dual liquor system that we have, you have wet counties and dry counties and all of this. And it created quite the mismatch across the state. It really affected a lot of citizens, and it's sort of archaic. So we're trying to update the state laws.
I got you. But here's my question, because somebody asked me and I did not know. If a grocery store wants to, with your order, deliver a 6-pack of beer, they can do that. If a pizza shop wants to also sell beer, get a beer's license, and with your pizza send you a 12-pack of beer with it, they could do that. Is that right?
I think this is for home delivery. I think that's what this is about. I don't think this is
that's what I'm saying, though. But grocery stores have home delivery. Is it inclusive of grocery stores delivering that as far as the wines that are permitted on the shelf, along with beer?
Well, there's a whole issue of whether you can sell wine in grocery stores, and at this point, we don't allow that in the state of Mississippi. So I don't think you're going to have the grocery stores with a home delivery, but you have liquor stores.
Okay. Are you sure about that? Is that definitive? Because we do have wine that we sell.
We've debated that extensively in the state legislature. And in fact, that's one of those issues that got caught up in the initiative process, because there was already an initiative drive underway to allow for the wine sales in the grocery stores, which we don't currently allow. That issue, along with early voting and the flag and other things, got caught up in this state Supreme Court decision that says we now have a defunct initiative system.
So the bill would permit liquor stores to deliver to your home, but not grocery stores. Okay.
That's my understanding. That's correct.
All right. Let's get to what we wanted to talk about. Number one was your thoughts on this Medicaid expansion. Where's that going to go? Because I know there are a lot of people trying to push that. It doesn't seem to be making headway in the Senate. What about the House?
Well, I'm in the Senate. I'm not in the House.
I'm sorry. It's making way. It's not making any headway in the House. It seems to be having a little bit of a chance in the Senate. So your thoughts?
Sure. I serve as the vice chairman of the Medicaid committee in the state Senate, and certainly I think the position that we're in is that we're open to studying and to looking at what other states across the country are doing. But at the end of the day, it's got to work for Mississippi. Every state is different, and Mississippi is certainly different from Indiana and some of these other states that have tried it. And to be honest with you, I don't know of a state where we could go and look at something that will be exactly the same as Mississippi. I guess Arkansas demographically and geographically is about as close as any other state in the country to us. So certainly we're open to looking at how that would work, and would it be a net benefit to Mississippi, or would it be a net detriment? And I don't think anyone is, certainly not, I haven't, I don't know anybody else that I've spoken with has come to a final conclusion as to whether that would be even a possibility in our state. But I mean, as a public policymaker, you have to be open to looking and studying at any proposition. That doesn't mean you're for it or that it ultimately will come into law, but to just bury your head in the sand and say, well, I'm not even going to think about that or look at that or study that, I think is sort of an obtuse way of doing things.
But there's no official study committee that's in place or scheduled.
Not a study committee. There is a Medicaid committee in the state Senate, and I think we'll be looking at different versions across the state and if any of those would be beneficial to Mississippi or not.
Speaking of study committee, is there any study committee in put together yet as far as personal income taxes? Because that was one of the things that we had talked about.
Yes, Governor Hosemann has formed a study committee in the state Senate. Of course, Chairman Harkins, the finance chairman, is heading up that committee. I do not believe they've started their actual meetings yet. We've been studying more on medical marijuana and its impacts in the state the past month or two. But I do know there is a committee formed to study specifically the tax proposals.
Have you, speaking of the medical marijuana, are you further enough along that if the governor's office called and said, look, are you guys ready for a special session, would the advice be, yeah, we're ready to go?
I think we're getting very close in the Senate. We've already had a couple of hearings. I think there's another one coming up this week that Chairman Bryan is chairing, and those have been very, very informative. Doug spoke at our last one, and I thought was spot on. He was like, look, if you want to talk about medical marijuana, let's talk about that. If you want to talk about recreational use, let's talk about that. But this initiative basically had the effect of blurring those lines where you didn't have a prescription, you didn't have any sort of firm amounts. You just basically got a pass to get marijuana basically as much as you could use over a month period. So I think Dr. Dobbs was saying, look, I can talk to you about either version, but tell me which version you're interested in. So I think that's what I got out of the last hearing, that there certainly are mechanisms and programs across the country that we could mimic and copy that is a true medical marijuana, or there are certainly states like Colorado and others that are recreational use, but which one does the public in Mississippi want?
How do you think Joey, what do you think your constituents would be up for? In other words, do you think if you put a real recreational marijuana bill on the table that your constituents would find that if in favor of that? Would they be in favor of that?
Not the majority in my district. No. There are certainly a strong vocal minority in my district, maybe 20%, 25%, that would be for full-blown recreational use marijuana. But when the proponents of the marijuana in our state tout the 74% numbers, 74% of Mississippians are for, marijuana use, that's not so, at least not in my district in South Mississippi. My constituents saw the commercials that were very well done with these very sick people with, pancreatic cancer and other maladies that came on and said, I'm in pain, I'm suffering, I need some pain relief. Mississippians are very compassionate people, and they want you to have that relief if that's what's helping with cancer.
I think we're losing you a little bit as far as the audio, but hold on, because I got another segment. I want to ask you about a couple of other things with the chairman of Judd B. That's Joey Fillingane, Mississippi District 41, chairman of Judd B, and also vice chairman of the. Back with Joey Fillingane, senator from Mississippi District 41. So as far as the medical marijuana, is the sticking point here going to be two things, and from everybody I talk to is these two things, whether to allow or not allow smoking, other than in just the terminal patients, and number two, allowing municipalities to opt out. Would you say, Joey, those are going to be the two most contentious points?
Among the other contentious points, which would include the amount of tax potentially, and obviously the breadth of it. Are you going to require prescriptions? Are you going to require a certain dosage amounts on a daily basis? Or are you just going to give a free pass to say, okay, you get to use marijuana, go use as much as you'd like?
Have you looked at the Alabama statutes that they passed as far as Alabama's concerned?
I've heard some about it. I haven't read it word for word yet.
Have you looked to see if how closely what is being worked up in the House matches what's in the Senate? You think you guys are going to be pretty close, or are you going to be far apart?
I think we'll be a little far apart, probably.
Really?
I
Is
think
one or the
so. I
other?
mean, yeah, I think you have a strong contingency in the House. It's my understanding that wants to basically go word for word with the initiative that was passed. But I think in the Senate, we're digging a little deeper and drilling down a little bit into that language, and we're discovering a lot of problems that maybe the drafters didn't think through when they were putting it together. So no fault of their own. I think it's a first stab at something. And like most first drafts, it has a little bit of tweaking that needs to go on with it.
Mm-hmm. So would you say you guys are a little bit more liberal in the Senate's version that could finally make it to the floor?
I think Joey Fillingane is going to be a little more conservative. I don't know about all of my colleagues, certainly don't want to speak for all 51 of them, but I want a true medical marijuana program for the state of Mississippi. I think that's what our voters anticipated when they voted in favor of it, referendum and initiative process. And I think that's the mandate that we've been given. Now, if you want to talk about recreational use or something approaching recreational, let's have that debate. Let's be honest about that, and let's see where the voters of the state of Mississippi are on that issue.
So what you're basically saying, if the House would want to mirror what was in 65, that's about as close as you can get to recreational marijuana.
It is. It's recreational marijuana under the guise of a medical marijuana program. It's very similar to the Oklahoma version, which is very liberal, very wide open. I want to hew closer to a true medical marijuana program. And Alabama may be that version that we look at. I'm not sure, but I don't want a wide open recreational adult use marijuana program like they have in Colorado or Oklahoma.
What's the tax rate that's been bandied around in the Senate?
Well, of course, what was in the initiative was just a sales tax of 7%. I think that's ridiculous. If you're going to have anything beyond just a prescription only, medical marijuana program, then people ought to be taxed for that, because you're going to have a whole new infrastructure of, regulators, of people that regulate both the growing of it, the distribution of it, the usage of it. The taxpayers in Mississippi ought not to bear the burden and the cost, in my opinion, out of the general fund of doing a recreational use marijuana program, if that's what we're going to have.
So you're talking about 9%? Did you hear me? Are we talking about maybe 9%?
There
Joey?
you are. I lost you for a second.
Sorry.
Or two.
Are we talking about 9% as far as sales tax?
I think anywhere from what they're proposing in the 7% to about a 10% revenue hearing.
I got it. Any of the other bills coming up as far as July the 1st, which is only about a week away, a little over a week away? Anything that the new laws that you'd like to mention that probably came from Judd B or Judd A?
On the judiciary side and really corrections as well, you have some additional flexibility given to the Department of Corrections and the sentencing type situations. And it's meant to allow people that largely on drug charges were put away for long periods of time to, if they have completed their sentence as far as the alcohol and drug programs in the facilities there in the state, if they've done that, then some of them will be eligible, not automatically parole, but will be eligible to be considered for parole. The idea being that, if you were sent away for 20 plus years on a marijuana charge and something that we're talking about even legalizing at this point, it doesn't seem rational that you would keep a potentially productive citizen behind bars for long, lengthy periods of time. And he or she could hopefully get out and learn their lesson and get back into society and maybe be a productive citizen for a change.
The calls for a special session, we haven't heard anything. Have you heard anything from the governor's office?
what you have and everybody else has, which is I think Governor Reeves has said quite wisely that once you in the House and Senate get your act together and come to me and say we've got a bill ready to roll, I'll immediately call you in the special session for a couple of days and let you pass said bill and get on out of town again. So I think he's waiting on us. I think he's indicated he's more than supportive of calling the special session once we're ready to go with the language.
All right. Well, look, I know you probably want to get back to feeding the twin boys there, so we'll let you go.
Hey,
I do want to ask you this.
Morning. They're good for
They've been fed. Well, I got to ask you, did any inroads as far as the possibility of running in the congressional race? Because the last time we talked, you were thinking about running against Palazzo. What's anything new on that?
The only thing new I've heard is what's been out in the media, and it's not good for our congressman. He's obviously under House Ethics Committee investigation. We've recently found this past week that he also spent about $60,000 of said campaign funds hiring attorneys to represent him in the ethics investigation. And while that may be legal, it looks horrible. I mean, if you're already under investigation for unwisely using your campaign funds, then to have to spend another $60,000 plus of those monies hiring legal counsel, lawyering up to try to defend yourself. That sounds to me really, really bad.
When's the qualification deadline on this one?
Well, it would depend. If he has to resign and go away in that version of the facts, then you would have the governor would call a special election no more than 60 days after the vacancy occurs. If he hangs on and doesn't leave early, then of course next year is when you would have the qualification opening up, I think in January probably.
I got you. So I guess where we stand is basically the same place. If for some reason that seat is vacated, you would more than likely become a candidate.
I think that's a fair assessment. If it becomes an open seat, I mean, there are already 3 or 4 people down on the coast that have said they're running. I haven't gone that far, but I'm certainly very interested in looking at it if it's an open seat. And, of course, we're all innocent until proven guilty. So I think we wait and see what the House Ethics Committee report looks like and see just how bad his actions were or not.
Yeah. Joey, thank you, man. Appreciate it very much, and I thank you for spending some time with us. Joey Fillingane, Mississippi
Always
District
a pleasure.
41.
Happy Father's Day belatedly to all of the listeners.
You got it. And certainly to you with twin boys now. Chairman Judd B. and Vice Chairman of Medicaid